Thank you, Governor, and thank you for everyone for inviting us from the National Weather Service to be here this afternoon. Again, my name is Benjamin Schott. I'm the meteorologist in charge of the National Weather Service office in New Orleans, and we'll be talking a little bit about Delta and the impacts to the state of Louisiana. Let me see if... Oh, looks like we may not be on.
Okay, that was a quick briefing.
Doesn't look like it. Oh, there we go. All right. And that's why we call in the National Guard when we need them, right there. Thank you, General. So again, let's talk a little bit about Hurricane Delta. Hurricane Delta is a major hurricane. Right now it is heading for the Yucatan Peninsula as a Category 4. Similar to what the Governor said, at this point, probably moving forward through the rest of Delta's lifetime before it makes landfall, I don't think we should worry so much about what category is. It is going to be a major hurricane. And the impacts of Delta when it comes on shore are going to be significant to the state of Louisiana. And so we're pretty certain about that track. We're pretty certain about the idea that somewhere along the coastline that we will have significant impacts due to Hurricane Delta. Some of those you see listed up there. Though right now, the likelihood of life-threatening storm surge. Anyone with interests along the coast who don't have their homes or whatever the structure is elevated can see significant surge overtake that building. And it's something that we need to obviously prepare for as we move forward. Anything loose from the surge can be drifted around. We saw lots of examples of that from Sally with what happened around Pensacola and over towards Mobile with things hitting into bridges and moving around. So it's even the secondary things that occur from the surge that can also create a significant amount of damage. And with this, it's a possibility, obviously, with a major hurricane coming towards the state. Other threats are the widespread damaging winds. Now, every time you have a major hurricane making landfall where you're at, the possibility of winds in excess of 100 miles per hour or more could be possible. Though there is the possibility of the weakening, as we mentioned earlier, I don't think we should keep that as something that we think is going to limit the possibility of damage or the threat to life. And so, again, as the Governor mentioned, we definitely need to consider this as going to be a major hurricane when it makes landfall, most likely in the state of Louisiana. The one saving grace with Delta is it may be moving fairly quickly. And so because it's moving very quickly, the heavy rainfall may be a little bit more limited, but the threat of a heavy band setting up and creating flash flooding as well as river flooding is something that we definitely need to continue to watch. A lot of that happens on the eastern side of the storm. And so for those who end up being on that side, again, that is a significant threat to life and property. If we can go ahead and jump to the next slide. So here's the current track right now as of 2 p.m. Eastern time or 1 p.m. Central. Again, it is a major hurricane as it approaches the Yucatan Peninsula. It is expected to continue a northwest track. There will be some interaction with the peninsula over the course of the next 24 hours. Some other things that we expect this storm to do is the possibility that its wind field will expand and widen over the course of the next day or two. That can have impacts both when it comes to the damaging wind swath and also when it comes to surge. So again, we're going to tell people something that you've probably heard me say many times in these press conferences is do not get enamored with the center line of the track as you see it here. If you are in the cone, you can be affected by life-threatening impacts and you need to prepare as such. And that's really important as we are still 3 to 4 days out here. And so 20, 30 miles, 50 miles difference can make all the difference like we saw with Laura, where the surge or most of the surge hits, where the heaviest wind swath of damage hits. So we have to understand you don't have to be at the center line to see life-threatening impacts, and that's probably the number one takeaway right now. If you're in that cone, you need to prepare like you are going to see life-threatening impacts. If we go ahead and jump to the next slide. And so when are the earliest time that these impacts could start? Well, when it comes for the winds, you can see the earliest time here right now shows roughly about Friday a.m. Now, this is the earliest reasonable time. If the storm slows down just a little bit, it could be later in the evening or even as late as Saturday early morning. But we want people to understand that your window to prepare starts to close on Friday. And so here we are standing on the middle of Tuesday afternoon with the understanding that the window will close here in just a few days. And as I put in that last bullet right there, you see the whole coastline is in play for tropical storm winds, with chances up to 90% over portions of the state's coastline. Obviously, these chances will probably go up as we get a little bit more certainty in the track, and you'll see that also narrow down a little bit to the exact areas where we think the most damaging winds are possible. And we'll have a better feel for that over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours as we get more information from the storm, from the hurricane hunters, and also from the National Hurricane Center. If we could jump to the next slide. Here's a quick look at the rainfall right now. An aerial average of about 4 to 6 inches is possible with locally higher amounts. That doesn't seem like a lot of rain, I know, but if you get that in a very short time frame and you get under one of the heavier bands, those amounts could be up to double. And that's where you could definitely start to see river flooding as well as flash flooding. And one of the big risks that anyone can take in a storm is actually trying to drive in those conditions, especially if it's nighttime. You have no idea how deep that water is. You have no idea how fast the water is moving. And if you're driving over bridges or culverts or anything like that, you don't even know if the road is still there. So it's a very dangerous situation, and that is one of the threats that we'll look for as we move further down the line and we get an idea, a little bit more specifics about where we think this heavier rainfall may line up. If we could jump to the next slide. So key takeaways, again, we have a major hurricane approaching our shoreline in just a couple of days. We'll have much more when it comes to specifics of where it's most likely to hit as we get further down the road in the next 24 to 36 hours. We'll have a better feel for that after it passes the Yucatan Peninsula, and we get to see what kind of interaction it has with that land and gets back over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. And one of the key elements, that last one there, though we are looking at possible weakening to occur as it approaches the shoreline, I don't want everyone to use that as a reason to think that this is going to be something that's not going to create significant impacts to where you are or to where you live. Because again, if you are in that cone right now, you are at risk for life-threatening impacts from Hurricane Delta. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Governor, and again, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. As you can all plainly see, this is a very serious storm, a major hurricane, and as Ben mentioned, the one thing we sort of like about this particular storm is its forward speed, and we don't want that to slow down. The faster it gets in and out of the area, the less rain that falls, the shorter the period of time that the wind is whipping at our buildings and homes and so forth. And also, hopefully, the less surge. But all of those three things are going to be very significant. We did just complete a unified command group meeting at GOSEP. I can tell you that our state agencies and our federal partners and our local partners are all preparing for Delta's impacts on Louisiana. And much of the work that has been done with the several storms that have come our way already remains in place in terms of sandbags and super sacks and other work that's been done. But it's a never-ending mission to move generators and pumps and to respond with additional sandbags and super sacks. And all that's ongoing as we speak. For example, CPRA is working with the town of Grand Isle to install 350 super sacks to protect critical areas on the Gulf side of the island that were impacted during Tropical Storm Beta. The National Guard is assisting with the installation of those super sacks. That mission will begin this evening. Grand Isle has also requested 11 pumps and 5 generators. We're working now to fulfill those requests. They are also working on Grand Isle to shore up the levee on the north side or the bay side of the island. The CPRA and the Terrebonne Levee District are proceeding with an operation to sink a barge near the location of the Grand Bayou Floodgate construction site. Currently, that site is being prepped for this operation. Terrebonne is working 24 hours a day to lift a levee reach between Pointe-au-Chien and Montague. Their goal is to reach a minimum elevation of 11 feet. And lower to large east, this is outside the Morganza to the Gulf system. They're currently staging a large sandbagging operation to increase the elevation of lower portions of this levee, which are under construction to get it up to 11 to 12 feet. The St. Mary Levee District has also initiated an emergency contract to close the gap on the south side of the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway around Bayou Sally under the Highway 317 bridge. The CPRA is providing predictive storm surge modeling to all levee authorities and coastal parishes to help them make the best possible and timely decisions with respect to preparations for this hurricane. They're also monitoring all 689 gates across the coastal zone, 188 of which are closed as of this morning. As decisions are made over the next day or two on evacuations, we will keep you updated. Obviously, it goes without saying that those areas outside the protected areas down in coastal Louisiana are most at risk. But we encourage everyone to be weather aware, pay attention to the weather forecasts, go to the National Weather Service website, and also make sure that you follow the directions of your local elected officials. We know that there are a few parishes already discussing voluntary and mandatory evacuations of low-lying areas, and again, those announcements will come over the next day or so. If you do have to evacuate or you choose to evacuate, you can get updates on road closures from the Department of Transportation Development at 511la.org. As of this morning, and we're getting back to a COVID briefing now, but it interplays. I'm sorry, this is a LARA briefing, but it's COVID is implicated, as is Tropical Storm Hurricane Delta. Right now, we have 6,613 people who continue to shelter in Louisiana because of Hurricane Laura, and because of COVID, they continue to shelter in non-congregant shelters. We are consolidating the hotels down to 12 hotels. That'll be finished by tomorrow. 10 of those will be in New Orleans, 1 will be in Baton Rouge area, and 1 will be in the Lafayette area. At this time, there are not plans to move Hurricane Laura evacuees again in advance of Hurricane Delta. In light of the current forecast for the storm, it does look like we will need to pause COVID testing on Friday and Saturday in the New Orleans and greater Baton Rouge areas, but we will have more information about exactly where this testing will be paused tomorrow and on Thursday. Obviously, we're going to continue to monitor the situation and keep you updated. We really hate turning off our COVID tests because it is really important for us to know what's going on at any given time with respect to the transmission of the virus, the positivity of certain populations, and all of that. And testing really is the way we try to stay on top of that. So we will not turn it off any more testing than is necessary, and we will make sure that we resume testing as soon as we possibly can. While we're talking about COVID, I'll go over the numbers that we released for today. That is 506 new positive test results. So that's 506 new cases on 12,760 tests. Unfortunately, we're also reporting 6 new deaths today. Currently, we have 567 COVID patients in our hospitals. That number is up by 49 over the last 2 days. It was up 29 yesterday and 20 today. Now, as I always say, a couple of days doesn't necessarily make a trend, but we're keeping an eye on those hospitalization numbers because those are ground truth numbers. Those people are in the hospital, they've been diagnosed with COVID, and obviously we don't want the number of people in the hospital with COVID to continue to increase. As you are aware, my current Phase 3 order expires on Friday. We're going to have an update for you on Thursday about the order that will replace it. And, of course, on Thursday, we'll be giving you a lot of information, I suspect, as it relates to COVID, to Laura, and then principally on Hurricane Delta. And as we said during Laura, and it bears repeating because it's incredibly important, We're going to be preparing for and responding to Hurricane Delta during a COVID public health emergency. And necessarily, whether we want it or not, there will be tens of thousands of people moving about the state of Louisiana, either as voluntary or mandatory evacuations, as people who are pre-positioning to make sure that we can restore power. Shortly after the storm, you're going to have people coming in and so forth. It is really important that we do everything we can to follow all of the mitigation measures that are in place to slow the transmission of this virus and to reduce our cases and hospitalizations and obviously our deaths. I am very, very appreciative of all the people in Louisiana, and by the way, of all the people who came into our state in order to help us respond to Hurricane Laura, because we have not seen as of yet a surge in cases or in positivity. And so that means the mitigation measures do work. And it's really important that we continue to wear our mask or other face covering, especially when we are in the presence of people who are not part of our immediate household. It's also important to maintain 6 feet of distancing with people who are not part of your immediate household. It is really important to wash your hands frequently with soap and water. If you're sick, stay home. And remember, we should always protect those who are most vulnerable to this disease. Those are people who are 65 and older, those people who have comorbid health conditions like heart disease, kidney disease, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, and so forth. It is not too late, and in fact, we've been given a rare gift here because this forecast is telling us several days in advance that we can expect to be hit by a hurricane. The gift is the forewarning. So I'm encouraging everybody to use the time you have available to you between now and when it's too dangerous to continue to prepare or to evacuate, to get yourself, your family, in the best possible position for this storm. If you haven't yet done so, go to getagameplan.org. Remember, you should plan as if the first 72 hours are on you and that you should not anticipate receiving assistance within those 72 hours. Obviously, and you can see from the team that we continue to have assembled here, whether it's State Police, National Guard, Fire Marshal's Office, Wildlife and Fisheries, you name it, we're going to get to you just as soon as we possibly can. But when you prepare, you should have all of the supplies and all the things in mind that you will learn about if you go to getagameplan.org. And preparing for a storm in a COVID environment is unlike preparing for a hurricane in other years. So just because you've done this in the past doesn't mean that you're properly situated and prepared for this particular storm. If you'd like to subscribe to updates from my office, please text Hurricane Delta to 67283. Hurricane Delta to 67283. And Hurricane Delta is one word. Look, I know that another hurricane, another challenge, another disaster, another emergency is the last thing any one of us wanted to face this season. This season has been relentless, and in fact, since early March, it just seems like one thing after another. But the fact of the matter is, we don't get to pick and choose. This is the hand that we've been dealt. What we get to decide is how we play our hand, and we have to start playing it right now. And I want you to know we have a tremendous team of dedicated public servants who are going to be working around the clock to make sure that people are as protected and cared for as possible. We just need you to do your part. So prepare for the worst, pray for the best. I do encourage everybody to pray for our state. Our next press conference is scheduled tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. And that will follow another UCG meeting that I will have tomorrow. I do anticipate that before our meeting tomorrow, I will have submitted a pre-landfall declaration request to the President. And I will certainly update you on that tomorrow at the press conference.